We're getting to the end of our morning session here, and I know that we would be remiss if we did not talk about the 20th anniversary. We've mentioned that a couple of times. It's very exciting, and it's due to you all, to be honest, and a number of people who have worked with us in the past. And it would be totally remiss not to introduce to you Ann Pritzlaff this moment. It is my honor to introduce Ann Pritzlaff right now. And once again, I don't like reading, but I want to make sure I get all this right, so sorry about this, Ann. Ann is an appointee to the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation and the immediate past chair of the History of Colorado Board of Directors. She previously served as our State Historic Preservation Officer, the State Historic Preservation Officer for the state of Arizona, and she is a consultant working in the areas of historic preservation, public lands, heritage education, and tourism outreach and policy. She has been honored by numerous organizations, including this one, for her work in the field of historic preservation, and without her leadership, we would not have a Saving Places conference today. Please help me welcome Ann Pritzlaff.
Well, I think I know many of you in this room, but I'm curious, how many have been to more than 10 Saving Places conferences? Yes, I think I do know many people in this room. How many have been to more than 5? And how many are here for the first time? Oh, that just fills my heart. Because the goal was to always have lots of new people every year, but of course to keep our same constituency. 20 years is a long time. I didn't have gray hair. I didn't wear glasses. It's a long time. Like most great ideas, the Saving Places Conference was a combination of luck, risk, work, and perseverance. For 2 years, we couldn't convince History Colorado and the State Historic Fund to fund us because we were not worthy. We had to show huge audiences, a lot of enthusiasm, and a lot of attention, and of course we're able to change that. We had to grow and sustain to become the largest statewide preservation conference, and of course the second largest conference in the country. I mean, that is really extraordinary, and it's all owed to you sitting here, those here for the first time and those who have been here more than 10. You notice I didn't get up to 15. And of course, those of us that have been here for 20 years, which I see a few of you out there. The motivations we had to start the conference were to broaden the constituency, to add those new people that have raised their hands, to make better preservationists. We had the State Historic Fund in Colorado. We had a lot of tools to do preservation across the state, and we wanted to make better preservationists. And of course, to generate enthusiasm. When you get groups together, you can help do that. You can hear the presenters such as we just did, and you get very enthusiastic to hear what they can bring to us. It adds energy and motivation. And of course, it's a place to network, and it's a gathering place to come together with people across the state. And I think the number one reason we started the conference 20 years ago was for advocacy. That's why we have it in February, in case anyone was wondering. We do it, we picked the date to do it when it was a slow time in construction, not as much field work in archaeology, a little bit slower sometimes for some other people in our field. But also, it gave us an opportunity to invite legislators to attend different things, and for us, like many of you did yesterday, to go to the Capitol. I have 20 random reflections on 20 years to share, which will be familiar to most of you. And these aren't necessarily in order. The Denver Athletic Club, too small, so many stairs. El Jabel, the fabulous ballroom, oops, no bathrooms. The Convention Center, sorry, too big, so sterile. The Endangered Places announcement, the Western Heritage Luncheon, the fabulous tours, the workshops, wood, paint, mortar, all the sounds and the smells that come out of some of the workshops that are going on. And we did break a lot of codes, but don't tell anyone. The mayors, governors, state legislators, congressmen, senators that have all spoken and attended the conferences. The many films, the Havey production premieres, the CBS films, the Endangered Places films, and others. The many national leaders that we've been honored to hear speak here. People like Richard Moe, the Undersecretary of Defense about base closures, the Undersecretary of Interior about public land management, the Director of the National Park Service, so many national leaders. And of course, the impactful speakers, as we have just heard this morning, and people like Don Ripkema. When he first came, then I think we kept inviting him back and back and back and back. And every time I see him at other things, he's like, that's my favorite place to go. So we make a difference for that. 1,100 people, that was our biggest conference, and I know you can achieve that again. All the parties, the side parties, the parties we don't know about, the parties that are planned. And of course the bags. How many of you have like 10 bags, maybe 20 bags? You get a bag every year. And then the networking, and there have been a few marriages. I don't want to talk about anything else that may have happened, but I do know of a few marriages. I thought that was very entertaining. And then of course the awards. There's awards almost every moment for something during these conferences. And then the many volunteers. I was greeted by one of the volunteers who I know has been here for 20 years, and they all make it come together. As a lifelong preservationist, I can't help but sharing both my personal story and my preservationist perspective on 20 years. Of course, there's been many changes. We're now electronic everything. 20 years ago, all the registration was done by hand, and we were delighted when one was faxed and not mailed. It seemed so much more convenient. Just like the National Register being paper. Oh, oops, it almost still is. And the grant applications for the State Historic Fund. Well, they did go digital last year, finally. I used an AOL account. Can you imagine? You've got mail. It's now a different world. The conference has an app, and all the registrations are done online. Changes in our field are too numerous to count in the remaining 30 seconds I have. But of course, think of the expansion of landscape and the consideration of landscapes and cultural landscapes. Of course, things such as culturally modified trees. We weren't talking about that 20 years ago. Multiple property designations, mid-century modern. And then, of course, the explosion in the CLGs in Colorado that we're so proud of, and many other community revitalization tools. To put things in perspective, think 20 years ago, the 50-year rule was 1947, the end of the World War II in the midst of the Cold War. Now it's 1967, an era of social, cultural, and revolution, and of course the space age, and 1 year after the passage of the National Historic Preservation Act. Personally, I'm 61. I was 41. I had 3 young sons under the age of 12. They're all now married, have mortgages, and I'm a grandmother. That's what can happen in 20 years. Those young men at the time, had to stuff packets, stuff name tags, and know not to talk to me for the entire month of January. Like them, the conference and the preservation movement continues to grow and prosper. It's now up to all of you to continue this momentum. There's no turning back on historic preservation in Colorado now. There's no turning back on the Saving Places Conference now. This remarkable event is now fully established and has contributed to expanding the preservation ethic in Colorado. Thank you so much for being here and supporting the conference for 20 years. I hope I can be here 20 years from now, but who knows? Anyway, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the conference.